The play is actually I'm a Woman, the Pieces. I'm a Woman, the Pieces came out of a poem that I wrote probably, I think, 5 or 6 years ago now, called I'm a Woman. And it was a poem that was written to, in a sense, be a voice for women that didn't know how to express maybe their insecurities, who didn't fit a framework of beauty or a constructed framework of beauty, whose intellect, intelligence, whose lifestyle, whose story had not necessarily been shared. And so I wrote the poem as an opportunity to express those things. In sharing the poem with a friend, she said to me, Pam, this is more than a poem. And so I took that, I heard it, okay, and then some years later, I started a program called Her Harvest Women's Outreach. And we decided to do a fundraiser. And in that fundraiser, I did two poems, one of which was accompanied by mime, another of which was accompanied by another person, and it was the poem I'm a Woman. And my friend and theatrical partner for doing this poem also said to me, Pam, this is so weighty. This is going to cause conversations. This is going to cause, this is going to have a ripple effect as you read it and as you do it. And so these were two women that I had a lot of respect for, have a lot of respect for, really good friends. And so in the process of thinking about it, of thinking about Her Harvest Women's Outreach, which is a 4-month program, coaching program that I do with women. We're in the middle of it now. It starts in January, runs through April. And I thought about the various women that are in that program. I've thought about the women that I have coached through long-term rental assistance programs and just their variety, their difference. And I also understood that they weren't being heard. And I had an opportunity to share that. And in the play, I'm a Woman, the pieces really speak to the walls, the protective measures that we go through to attempt to survive, right? Some of the pieces are humor. Sometimes a piece might be going back to being a little girl. Sometimes that may come through being secretive or building up of walls. But we do things to protect ourselves, and we need to protect ourselves because very often there's deep pain that we haven't dealt with. And this play goes into all of that. And so that's a little bit about I'm a Woman, the Pieces. Well, being an African American woman, technically an African Caribbean American woman, it's yes, there's something different that comes with every culture. So the African American experience cannot be undersold, underestimated. There are specific issues that come along with being an African American, and to be polite, I will say it's not pretty, right? It's definitely not pretty. It still happens, and it doesn't matter how much education, formal and or informal, how much experience, how much, fill in the blank of positive things that you have. There is definitely something else that happens with many people when you come to the front as an African American woman. Won't shy away from that. But I will say, this is an experience that I have seen with my Caucasian sisters, with my East Indian sisters, with my indigenous people, sisters. I have seen it come in various ways from every ethnic background. And so I wanted to put some words, I wanted to put out some words that would speak to all of our experiences. Some it will speak to more and others less, but there's no way that you go untouched with this particular play. I was born here.
Okay.
My grandparents, my father's parents, are Jamaican and Bahamian. So we're Caribbean, Bahamian, and my family in general is a little bit of a gumbo, which is great because you have all kinds of experiences. Um, and it also, we talk about this a little bit, when your perspective is from the city that you live in, no matter how large a city you live in, you don't really experience what happens with other people in other countries and their systems and the way that they operate. So that's my plug for find a way to travel. Find a way to travel, find a way to see other places and have other experiences so that you can have a greater perspective than maybe the one that you have just in your city.
Woman?
One of the things I find, honestly, in Bahamian and Caribbean culture is that the standard of beauty is broader. Um, Long hair, short hair, light skin, dark skin, very thin, in the middle, heavy. Beauty has a broader definition, I would say, in the islands than here. I think it's changing somewhat because more and more cultures are moving here, but beauty has more of a broad definition. And I think some of the changes, even in this culture and in the United States, is in some ways, in some places, people are not afraid to look at people of other ethnic backgrounds and say there's beauty there. You don't have to look like this box in order to be beautiful. And I think that that has made somewhat of a difference, but we're still fighting.
Play.
Actually, it did not come out in the
Okay.
play. What comes out in the play and what the audience responded to really was hearing their situation out loud, whether that be a workplace situation, whether that be the trauma that may have been suffered as a child, whether that was the death of a significant person. There's something that's called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. The main character in the play has suffered some ACEs, and that also comes out in the play and was the beginning of her feeling like her brain saying, we need to protect her from this experience. There is a faith narrative in this play, and the character, main character, whose name is Woman, and that's why it's I'm a Woman, the pieces. The main character listens to all of these pieces, and as she begins to really examine what the pieces did or did not do for her, she found out that most of the pieces led her to more pain, more isolation, more separation. But there was only one piece that led her to healing, wholeness, self discovery, and a deeper relationship with God, herself, and her people, and that was the worshiper. As she began to worship God and she began to call on God and speak of Him and speak well of Him, she began to understand her value. She began to understand her truth. She began to understand that she did not, in fact, need to bow down to complications or walls or secrets or the girl or being voiceless. And these are all the pieces that we talk about in the play. She didn't need to let them speak for her. She recognized that she had the ability to speak to each of these pieces and say, I understand that you think that you need to protect me, but the truth is, I can stand up as a woman and I can protect myself. Well, I think that you can. I think that you can see it that way. I think, and I say this at the outset, I was raised with some pretty amazing men. My dad, his brothers, my I've met a couple, had the opportunity to meet one or two of my grandfather's brothers in the Bahamas, and I also had the opportunity to be raised with my my maternal grandfather's brothers, and they were pretty amazing men. They kind of set a pretty high standard. They were eloquent, they were respectful, they always encouraged all of us to think. I had one uncle that came in the room and you had to answer about 4 or 5 math problems before he gave you a good hello. And he was interested in growing all of our brains, and it didn't matter whether it was a niece or a nephew. It was, you need to be a thinker, you need to be intelligent, and we would have these wonderful conversations on both sides of my family. And so that's kind of the framework that I was raised in, which is probably a little different than a lot of people, but that was my surroundings. So the patriarchal system where men are dominant, I guess I asked the question, how's that working for us?
Good point.
You know, how is it working to treat, while we are considered a minority, we are the majority population. We are graduating from college at a higher rate. We are, and African American women are super graduating from college and getting, higher levels of education. So how does it work to have someone who is willing to share the wealth of knowledge, who's willing to be supportive, who's willing to take on so much? How does it work to subjugate them? How does it work to make them feel inferior? And I would venture to say it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It hasn't been good. And so when I look and I come back to the play, while the focus is women, the reality is for all of us, we all have to figure out who we are. We all have to battle our demons, if you will. We all have to deal with insecurities. We all have to stop allowing the pain of the past to be so persistent in our future, right? And to guide the way that we are today. And I know most of us have heard this before. You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If it's not working, then stop working what's not working. And so women have, and we're recording this during Women's History Month, right? Women have done phenomenal work. And as we continue to grow, as we continue to heal, and that's such a big deal. I mean, I can't overstate it. When you heal, you are more you than at any other time. And you're not afraid to investigate the person that you were really meant to be. I know the more I heal, the more my sense of humor comes back, the more adventurous I can be in terms of saying, I want to find out about those people. I want to find out about this movement. I want to find out about fill in the blank. And when you are scared and you are letting, coming back to the play, when you are allowing the pieces to tell you what to do, when you are allowing your childhood fears to stop you from moving forward, when you are allowing people who are maybe taking your ideas or dealing with you in a way that puts you down, when you are allowing them to steal your voice, you can't be you. And it's something that we all have to figure out. We all have that journey. And in the play, we watch this woman take that journey to realize that these pieces, they're alive in all of us. They don't necessarily die, But we gain the strength to be able to say, thanks for your suggestion, I'm not going that route. And that's what this woman ends up being empowered to do. Well, we mentioned a little bit before, but Malia Bloom does a 4-month program called Her Harvest Women's Outreach. And it is a free program where women volunteer to be a part of it. And we give them coaching, we do one-on-one coaching, and we do a community give back activity. Last year it was a fashion show called Shades of Pink, and we partnered with Lunch Break in Red Bank to make this happen. And so in Her Harvest Women's Outreach, part of really, and that was this year's fundraiser, our third one, and some of the women, again, it influences what happened in the play because there are a variety of personalities. There are people who are executive directors of nonprofits as well as unemployed women that are part of the program. So it's not limited to one specific type of woman in the sense of economics. It is limited to the type of woman who says, I've lived enough life this way and I need to make a change. And I'm willing to be humble enough to say, Pam, coach me. Help me get to my next level. And we've been very, it's just worked because 100% of the women that have completed the program have met at least one of the goals that they set in their program, and it is causing them to really go on and live better lives and to not be afraid to go after more. Well, one of the things that we do actually is at the fundraisers, we let people know that we do the program, and people sign up for the program, as well as in the community service project, we let people know and they sign up for the program. So in the community service or community give back portion, we always do something to help other women. So the fashion show was geared towards women who had been victims of domestic violence, who were in reentry, who were in recovery, and women who really are survivors. And they're looking to move from surviving to thriving. And that was our audience. And so it was really a great opportunity to highlight and celebrate those women, as well as to highlight Lunch Break and Malia Bloom and the work that we do. And so we meet people at the fashion show and talk about the program, and they said, I got 2 people actually that are currently in the program came as a result of that fashion show, that community give back. Others came as a result of the fundraiser that we had done in the previous year. The testimonies of the people who have, again, completed have been amazing. They are really changing their lives. They are really doing things differently, and differently in a healthy way that's allowing them to do even more with their lives, with some who are mothers to do more with their children. So it is, I can't even describe what it's like for me to be able to have this program, to see these results, and to operate with these women. It's been amazing. Right now, in terms of the actual one-on-one coaching, part of the program, no, that's right now. That's just me. In terms of the community give back, yes, Lunch Break has been a tremendous partner because again we utilize their services. They have a clothing closet called Clara's Closet. They have a food pantry, and they have numerous connections. They have a tremendous relationship in Monmouth County. I can't forget Interfaith Neighbors. They just always help me. They just always are there for me. So those are some of, I would say, the partners in terms of community give back programs. They have been helpful there. And with the play, we actually had American Water was a sponsor. for the play. And that happened because the husband of one of the models that we had in the fashion show was so overwhelmed with what we did in the fashion show. His company sought out that sponsorship for us. And so, it's just people have seen the work that we're doing and they love it. And who doesn't want to be a part of lifting up people? Malia Bloom is not a 501c3. Her Harvest is planning to become a 501c3. So we're looking in the next year to actually complete that paperwork, and so people will be able to give that way. But I think it's been tremendous that people knowing that it's not a 501c3 just know the work is so important that they're just willing to give anyway. Well, just to get a early plug in, I believe this year's Her Harvest Women's Outreach is actually going to be a book signing. My second book, The Comfort, is due out this fall, and so I think we're going to utilize that. It is a story and a cookbook, so we're going to have samples of the soup, some of the soup recipes that are in the cookbook, and then we're also going to be telling stories, because my publisher, New Season Books and Media, we tell stories of healing. And so that's very important to us. And so I believe right now, I believe that's going to be the fundraiser for this upcoming October.